It's the second time I got the message.
Okay.
Okay, welcome friends to the session 96 of Interfaith. We have a nice speaker today. Let me introduce our speaker to you. Vasu Mohan has been working on democracy, governance, and human rights works in Asia. His work focuses on political, social, and legal empowerment of women and vulnerable groups. He has also served in various voluntary capacities, including as member of the board of directors for the Tahir Justice Center and NGO to protect immigrant women and girls seeking justice. Vasu is a co-author of 4 publications: Electoral Rights of Environmental Displaced People, Gender Equality and Election Management Bodies, a Best Practices Guide. Ser, I'm not sure whether I was pronouncing it correctly or not. Ser, A New Dawn Breaks on Muslim Women's Initiatives in India. And last, Countering Hate Speech in Elections. He's working on a translation of Vijayanath's from the history of his native Sri Lanka language from Tamil into English. He's also a Bharata Natya dancer too, and choreographer. I hope we would talk about that as well. For the start, we will honor the indigenous people. Colin would do that, and then we have music, two of them, and then 8 readings, and then closing music, and then our speaker will start.
I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I live, the Gadigal and Bidjigal clans of the Darug language group, the clans in the central, eastern and southern suburbs of Sydney recognised boundaries marked by rivers and bays, but they also coexisted as they shared the language and had strong ties of kinship. Although much history and culture has been lost, we know from the dreaming stories of several clans and from the journals of those who met them that they recognised signs of God, or Bayami, in nature. In those stories, Bayami came down from the sky to the land and created rivers, mountains and forests. He then gave the people their laws of life, traditions, songs and culture. It seems that we encounter God not only in nature, but also in people. Meeting Australian Aborigines has helped me adjust my values from material to spiritual, from collecting things to creating relationships, from competition to collaboration, from talking to deep listening, and from respect to appreciation. Thank you.
branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. Neither can you unless you abide in me. Neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing.
I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me? I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me? That I may name thy name and fill thy soul with the Spirit of life, of life. I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me? I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me? That I may name thy name and fill thy soul with the Spirit of life, of life. I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me? I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me? That I may name thy name and fill thy soul with the Spirit of life, of life, of life, of life.
Magnified be thy name, O Lord my God. Thou art he whom all things worship, and who worshippeth no one, who is the Lord of all things, and is a vassal of none, who knoweth all things, and is known of none. Thou didst wish to make thyself known unto men. Therefore, thou didst through a word of thy mouth bring creation into being, and fashion the universe. There is none other God except thee, the fashioner, the creator, the Almighty, the most powerful. I implore thee by this very word that hath shone forth above the horizon of thy will, to enable me to drink deep of the living waters through which Thou hast vivified the hearts of thy chosen ones, and quickened the souls of them that love thee, that I may at all times and under all conditions turn my face wholly towards thee. Thou art the God of power, of glory and bounty. No God is there beside thee, the supreme ruler, the all glorious, the omniscient, the whole.
Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Christianity, Genesis 1-26-27. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Christianity, John 1-4.
Earth, water, flame, air, ether, life, and mind. And individuality. Those 8 make up the showing of me, manifest. These be my lower nature, learn the higher, whereby thou valiant one, this universe is, by its principle of life produced, whereby the world's visible things are born as from a yoni. No, I am that womb. I make and I unmake this universe. Than me there is no other master prince, no other maker. All these hang on me, as hangs a row of pearls upon its string. The Bhagavad Gita.
When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man that thou visitest him? For thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. Thou hast put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, yea, and the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passeth through the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. Jewish scripture, Psalm 8:3-9.
Siva, I've lost the readings.
Okay.
The readings have gone very small and my picture is on.
Okay, I'll read, don't worry. He it is who sends down water from the sky, whence ye have drink, and whence the trees grow whereby ye feed your flocks. He makes the corn to grow, and the olives, and the palms, and the grapes, and some of every fruit. Verily, in that is a sign unto a people who reflect. And he subjected to you the night and the day, and the sun and the moon and the stars are subjected to his bidding. Verily, in that are signs to a people who have sense. And what he has produced for you in the earth, varying in hue, verily, in that is a sign for a people who are mindful. He it is who has subjected the sea, that ye may eat fresh flesh therefrom, and ye bring forth from it ornaments which ye wear, and thou mayest see the ships cleaving through it, and that ye may search after his grace, and haply ye may give thanks. And he has cast firm mountains on the earth, lest it move with you, and rivers and roads, haply ye may be guided. And landmarks, and by the stars too are they guided. Is he who creates like him who creates not? Are they then unmindful? But if ye would number the favors of God, ye cannot count them. Verily, God is forgiving and merciful. The Quran.
The one true God hath everlastingly existed and will everlastingly continue to exist. His creation, likewise, hath had no beginning and will have no end. All that is created, however, is preceded by a cause. This fact in itself establisheth, beyond the shadow of a doubt, the unity of the Creator. Thou hast moreover asked me concerning the nature of the celestial spheres. To comprehend their nature, it would be necessary to inquire into the meaning of the allusions that have been made in the books of old to the celestial spheres and the heavens, and to discover the character of their relationship to this physical world and the influence which they exert upon it. Every heart is filled with wonder at so bewildering a theme, and every mind is perplexed by its mystery. God alone can fathom its import. The learned men that have fixed at several thousand years the life of this earth have failed, throughout the long period of their observation, to consider either the number or the age of the other planets. Consider, moreover, the manifold divergencies that have resulted from the theories propounded by these men. Know thou that every fixed star hath its own planets, and every planet its own creatures, whose number no man can compute. Baha'u'llah.
O Son of Being, thou art my lamp, and my light is in thee. Get thou from it thy radiance, and seek none other than me. For I have created thee rich, and have bountifully shed my favor upon thee. O Son of Being, with the hands of power I made thee, and with the fingers of strength I created thee, and within thee have I placed the essence of my light. Be thou content with it, and seek not else, for my work is perfect, and my command is binding. Question it not, nor have any doubt thereof.
O my God, the God of bounty and mercy, thou art that King by whose commanding word the whole creation had been called into being, and thou art that all bountiful one. The doings of his servants have never hindered him from showing forth his grace, nor have they frustrated the revelations of his bounty. Suffer this servant, I beseech thee, to attain unto that which is the cause of his salvation in every word of thy words. Thou art verily the Almighty, the most powerful, the all-knowing, the all-wise. Baha'u'llah.
Create in me a pure heart, oh my God, oh my God, and renew a tranquil conscience within me, oh my hope, through the Spirit of power, confirm thou me in thy cause. Oh, my best beloved, confirm thou me in thy cause, and by the light of thy glory, reveal unto me thy path. By the light of thy glory, reveal unto me thy path. O thou, the goal of my desire, and through the power of thy transcendent might, lift me up unto the heaven of thy holiness, O source of my being, and by the breezes of thine eternity, gladden me, O thou who art my God. Let thine everlasting melodies breathe tranquility on me, O my companion. and the most hidden of the hidden, the most manifest of the manifest, and the most hidden of the 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 hidden.
Thank you, Siva, for those beautiful readings. And thanks to every one of us that read those readings. It was beautiful. I think the theme was creation. Once again, I'll welcome Mr. Vasu Mohan. He's going to talk on Bharatai, Tagore, and Abdul Baha. So I don't know what those two first words are.
Bharati is a great poet in India.
Yeah.
And also Tagore is another great poet of India.
Great. I was going to say Vasu would definitely explain to us what those words are. What now the people. Okay. It's up to you now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see everybody again, and a big shout out to Miss Pina, my extended family in Malaysia. Hi, Miss Pina. So this presentation came about as part of a long conversation with Mr. Siva and myself about trying to do some topics that connect to the Baha'i faith, to the Eastern traditions, Eastern philosophies, traditions, and Hindu culture. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier when we were chatting before this discussion was my sister hosts interfaith devotionals just like this from here in Chennai or in Colombo. And I've been preparing some presentations for them. And this particular set of selections that I'll be sharing with you come from those presentations. So who are these three individuals? Everyone on this group, at least, knows of Abdul Baha, who is the son of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith and the center of his covenant, and one of the three central figures of the Baha'i faith. The other one that we haven't talked about being the Bab and Baha'u'llah, the prophet founders, and Abdul Baha, the son and appointed successor of Baha'u'llah. Who are the other two individuals? We'll unpack that just a little bit today. One is a poet, a Tamil poet, whose name was Bharati, Subramanya Bharati. And another was a Bengali poet named Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore is much more well-known internationally because he's won a Nobel Peace Prize for Literature, and also has a unique distinction of having written the national anthems of two countries, India and Bangladesh. A great philosopher, writer, thinker. So these are two individuals who are, whose writings we will explore in, connection to Abdul Baha's writing. And the premise of all of this is that the Baha'i faith an independent world religion in its own right, is also the most recent of religions in the long continuum of a conversation between the creator, God, and the created creation, that is humanity. And the intermediary of that conversation are these manifestations of God, these founders of great world religions, Zoroaster, Moses, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, Krishna, Buddha, these great beings who are, who reflect the light that comes from God to humanity. And, with each of the coming of these manifestations, there is a fresh energy that is released into the world. Some people immediately are attracted to these writings, learn of them, embrace that religious faith. So at the time of Christ, it would be the early Christians. The time of Prophet Muhammad, it will be the early Muslims. The time of Buddha, it will be the early people who became Buddhists. And in this day and age, in the time of the Baha'i faith, the Baha'is, these are sort of people who would follow, name these, sort of associate their name with the name of the founders of these great religions. Christian is to be Christ-like. Muslim is someone who submitted their will to Allah. A Buddhist is someone who follows the Buddha, and a Baha'i is someone who follows Baha'u'llah. So that's the direct connection. In addition to that, the manifestations of God release into the world powerful energies that touches people who have never heard of them, who may never, be direct, who may have never met them, never heard of them, but they're still touched by this power that is released. And simply because these manifestations of God don't come only for their followers, they come for humanity as a whole. They come to, for the spiritual transformation of individuals and societies, but humanity as a whole. And so with the release, or with sort of the revelation of Baha'u'llah that spread around the world, many people were impacted by the spirit of the age. We often would call it the spirit of the age. And this is why these founders of great religions are called, the Lord of the age. They are they represent the age, they create the age. So these two writers or poets that we're going to talk about, in addition to Abdul Baha, are also people who reflect that spirit of the age. And that is the real connection. And we see some threads of these people who lived in 3 different parts of the world, whose writings were, sort of pretty much happened independent of each other, but all touched by the same revelation. Abdul Baha directly, recipient of the Baha'i teachings, and he himself was one of the central figures of the Baha'i faith. Tagore had some connections with the Baha'i faith, including having met Abdul Baha once, but was never a Baha'i or directly, influenced by the Baha'i faith. And with Bharati, the third poet, we have no knowledge of his connection to the Baha'i faith, but all of them, the message in their poetry and work are just so powerfully connected to these ideas, these teachings of Baha'u'llah, the oneness of humanity, the oneness of religion, the elimination of prejudices, the promotion of the equality of women and men, and particularly women's empowerment. It's not just equality, it's actively empowering, women, and this science and religion that they need to agree. So there's a lot of these Baha'i core teachings that are reflected in the writing. So that's what this presentation is about. And, feel free to drop questions or thoughts on the chat as you go. Someone else will be reading. I will be screen sharing. So I will actually not be able to, sort of read the comment immediately. But, I'll certainly answer if you ask any questions. So if that is okay, let me just go ahead and share my screen. And
Wasu, is all these poets still alive, and what period were they? Were they at the time of Abdul Baha?
We will be talking about that now.
Okay.
Okay. So are you able to see my screen? Wonderful. Thank you. I may ask some volunteers to read a few things, so please help me with that as well. So the two talks that I gave at my sister's fireside at her discussion were separate. One was Bharatiya and the Baha'i writings, which is the vision for a new world. And here you see the first picture, which is my left, is Abdul Baha, and the second picture is Bharati, the Tamil poet. And I thought there was sort of a striking, some similarities, or at least a power emanating from the two of them. And the second was Tagore and Abdul Baha, and that's a connection that I have made as lovers of humanity. And you look at them, and there's some resemblance to each other as well, which is just historical, but it's just kind of interesting. So here's sort of a quick snapshot of the history. Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, his life was between 1817, earthly life was between 1817 and 1892. Just a few years ago, we got through celebrating 200 years, the bicentenary of the birth of Baha'u'llah. Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, his birth was in 1844 and he lived until 1921. And he was born in Iran, and along with his father and family was exiled to Iraq, and then to Turkey, and then finally Palestine, where he passed away and he is buried. And he was fluent in Persian and Arabic and Turkish languages that he was proficient in, and much of his revelation and what he wrote were in Persian and Arabic and have been translated into many, many world languages with the spread of the Baha'i faith around the world. The second person we're looking at is Subramanian Bharati, that is his full name. Bharati, his years is 1882 to 1921. Interestingly, he and Abdul Baha passed away on the same year. Bharati was much younger than Abdul Baha when he passed. And he lived in India, and towards the end of his life in a French colony at that point called Pondicherry. But most of his life was in the state of Tamil Nadu. And he spoke and wrote in Tamil, but he was also very proficient in Sanskrit, Telugu, Hindi, English, and French, because he lived in that, French colony. And Tagore, was born in 1861 to 1941, and he lived much of his life, all his life in India, but he had traveled to the United States, and he spoke in Bangla or Bengali, which is the the main language that's spoken in the state of West Bengal in India and the country of Bangladesh. So we have West Bengal and Bangladesh. So that was his main language, but he also knew Sanskrit, other Indian languages, and English. And his work, for a collection of his poems called Gitanjali, won him the Nobel Prize in Literature. So they are contemporaries. Their lives intersect at different points, but physically, only Abdul Baha and Rabindranath Tagore were both in the United States at the same time. I am going to ask for your forgiveness for just 1 second while I adjust this. Please bear with me. Thank you for your patience. So now you're with the history that we put together, just a few additional, points. Bharati, and are you able to see the text?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Bharati never met Abdul Baha, to the best of our knowledge, and we actually there's no record of it at all. He may have heard about him, he may not have, but the connection is truly spiritual alone. But Abdul Baha, Tagore and Abdul Baha, actually, there's some record of a meeting of them. And Shoghi Effendi, the grandson of Abdul Baha, who was also one of the the leaders in the Baha'i faith. Shoghi Effendi, taught in his book called God Passes mentions Rabindranath Tagore as one of the people of eminence who is reported to have met Abdul Baha during Abdul Baha's 7-month-long visit in the year 1912. And later on, one of the great Baha'i teachers, Martha Root, has made an account of her conversation with Tagore. He came to India. She says, Tagore, as having mentioned, I met Abdul Baha in Chicago in 1912. He was staying in a hotel. He was talking to his followers who gathered around him, and I spoke with him. He kindly asked me if possible to come and see him in his own place in Haifa, then Palestine, and now modern day Israel. I always thought I would try to go, but it wasn't to be like that. The years went by, and one day I read in the newspapers that Abdul Baha had passed. So Tagore, mentions having met Abdul Baha, and Shoghi Effendi confirms of this meeting. There isn't a lot of account by those who kept records during those meetings, because Tagore did not become very famous until after 1912, when his public book, the Gitanjali, was published in English, and then he went on to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. So he may have been one of many people that Abdul Baha met, but he was not, a very prominent person, at least outside of India. And of course, people in India knew him, but he may not have been that well known in the West. Also, just very, from the writings of Abdul Baha's son, there's a real, indication sort of the physical similarities between the two of them. And apparently his son had overheard someone saying, people in the West saying how he looks like our prophet. And, there's a very good possibility that the prophet they're mentioning here is Abdul Baha, who came and visited the United States, spoke in various locations, was extremely, well covered in the media. And people knew, and there were many Baha'is who followed him, and many people who were interested in him. And he was referred to as the prophet, as the master. So there's a good possibility that that's what Tagore's son overheard people describing his father as having, looking like this prophet. So a couple of things that Tagore really talked about: his university that he established in West Bengal, having similar, principles akin to the universal ideals of Baha'u'llah. He refers to, the research of the great religion founded by Baha'u'llah. He was very happy to offer space for that in his universities. He also spoke at an event organized, in the United States during a later visit to pay homage to Baha'u'llah. And he says that Baha'u'llah's life is certainly a glorious record of unflinching human search after truth, and his message is of great importance for the progress of civilization. So that sort of concludes the little history of the presentation. For the rest of the time that we have together, I'll just use some poetry from Tagore, Bharati, and Abdul Baha's own writings. Now, Tagore and Bharati were not, they certainly inspired human beings, but they were not either founders or central figures in any religious tradition. They were poets and authors and national, they were freedom fighters and, sort of great thinkers, and they didn't claim to be anything else either. Abdul Baha, on the other hand, clearly was appointed by his father as a center of his covenant and was the leader of the Baha'i community. And his writings we consider to be part of Baha'i scripture. So there's definitely a quality difference, in terms of what they claimed their writing was. That being said, it's very clear that their writings are all infused by the same spirit of the age that Baha'u'llah brought for the world. And that's the real point of this talk that I wanted to, that also what got me excited about this to begin with. Okay, So the first one is a poem. The first theme is hope, and it's a poem of Bharati called Jaya Berigai, or translated as the victory drum. Can I, if you're able to see this, can I have someone read this poem, please?
I can read it.
Thank you.
Strike the victory drum. We vanquish the ghost of trepidation. We split the serpent of falsehood, drank away its life. To absorb the entire celestial world like itself. We embrace the life of profanity. We bathe in the light of the sunlight. The nectar we partook in jubilation. Skeptically as it tread to destroy lives. We awake to petrify the messenger of death. Crows and sparrows are our tasks. Seas and mountains our assembly. All the directions we behold, there is only us, else. Gaze more and more, it is euphoria. Bharati.
Thank you. This is a beautiful poem that has a lovely refrain in Tamil, Jaya Berigai Kotteda Kotteda, and it's a beautiful poem. The translations do not do it justice, but to just give you a sense of the jubilation and the sense of hope about the future, that crows and sparrows are our caste in a very deeply caste-conscious, caste-ridden society. Early in the century, this poet writes that crows and sparrows are our caste. Not only are all human beings, of one caste, he also includes in that wide embrace crows and sparrows, the most common, words that of the place where he lived, and talks about seas and our mountains are our assembly, drawing nature also into his conversation. So this poem is reflective of another wonderful passage in the writings of Abdul Baha. And may I have someone else please read this one?
Okay. O ye friends of God, do ye know in what cycle ye are created and in what age ye exist? This is the age of the blessed perfection, and this is the time of the greatest name. This is the century of the manifestation, the age of the sun of the horizons, and the beautiful springtime of his holiness, the eternal one. Take the cup of testament in thy hand, leap and dance with ecstasy in the triumphal procession of the covenant. Lay your confidence in the everlasting bounty. Turn to the presence of the generous God. Ask assistance from the kingdom of Apple. Seek confirmation from the supreme world. Turn thy vision to the horizon of eternal wealth and pray for help from the source of mercy. Abdul Baha.
Thank you. The first was the beating of the drum in the first poem, and in the second poem, the second verse, take the cup of testament in thy hand and leap and dance with ecstasy in the triumphal procession of the covenant. There's this telling of a new age has dawned, to sort of be celebratory. And in the previous poems, we hear about euphoria, and it's very much reflected in this writing from Abdul Baha. These are not one-to-one correspondence. It's the spirit and the types of things that they are talking about. The second selection is about knowledge. And in Tamil, the poet Bharati writes about a foolish people wandering in search of God, particularly in a country like India, where there's sort of many, many gods that people, pursue, even though religion at its core is, refers to philosophically one God, but people do talk about different gods. And then on top of that, there are different religions as well. So he says, oh foolish people wandering in search of God, can you hear myriad scriptures declaring that knowledge alone is God. Carried away senseless people, you praise a bull god, a hunter god, a wood god, when it's said clearly that knowledge permeating within everything in the universe is God. So this is really, Poet Bharati's sort of cry to his people, calling them to rise above divisions, but also to rise above superstitions and to really think about, knowledge, this connection of knowledge and God. And this is reflected also in Abdul Baha's writing, where he talks about the man is given the special gift of the intellect by which he's able to receive a larger share of light divine. The perfect man is a polished mirror reflecting the Son of Truth, manifesting the attributes of God. This light of the intellect enables us to understand and realize all that exists, but it is only the divine light that give us sight for invisible things, and which enables us to see truths that will only be visible to the world thousands of years hence. So this idea of knowledge, of divine knowledge is something that is reflected, or knowledge as a gift, it's a divine gift, and is reflected in both of their writings. Now let us look at the topic of women's empowerment and gender equality. Bharati has this beautiful song about a certain style of dance where women clap their hands and move in circles called kummi. Some versions of this are in other parts of India as well. But Bharati specifically wrote this dance song around the liberation of women. This is very, very reflective of the types of things that Abdul Baha did and said and wrote about. And they go way beyond just this idea of equality. They talk about the power of women and what a force that is that will transform the world as we know it. So I can ask someone to read a few lines of this one, maybe Ms. Pina, since I know you, I can put you on the spot and call you to read it.
No problem. Women's Liberation Dance. Dance the kummi. Let this land of the Tamils ring with our dance. For now we are rid of all evil shades. We have seen the good. Gone are they who said to woman, thou shalt not open the book of knowledge. And the strange ones who boasted, saying, we will immure these women in our homes. Today they hang down their heads and they talk of chastity. Good, let it be binding on both. But a custom that forced us to wed women, we have cast it down and trampled it underfoot. To rule the realms and make the laws, we have risen. We women have risen. Nor shall it be said that women lags behind man in the knowledge that he attaineth.
Thank you, Ms. Pina.
Thank you.
This is a very powerful song in its original, and at a time when women's education and liberation was just beginning to happen, here's this, poet who writes bravely about, about these ideas. And particularly he talks about chastity, and the very powerful thing, he says chastity often, ascribed only to women. He said, okay, let's talk about chastity. Put it in between. Let it be for both men and women. And so it's a very interesting reflection of this in Baha'u'llah's writing, where he talks about chastity. He says, let your eye be chaste. Chastity is not about covering up, the opposite sex or segregating, people. He completely lays the responsibility of chastity on each individual and eye. Chastity is on the eye, everything will be pure. So it's really a very beautiful reflection of this idea, but also it talks about women, Bharati talks about women making laws to rule and to pursue all branches of knowledge. Let's hear what Abdul Baha has to say about the same topic. I'm just Can someone else be Mayum? Would you like to read this? I'm just going, I don't know you all, I'm going by the names you've written, so apologies if I'm not pronouncing or calling on the right name. But yes, please, would you read this?
Yung.
Yes, thank you. The world of humanity possesses of two wings, the male and the female. So long as these two wings are not equivalent in strength, the bird will not fly. Until womankind reach the same degrees as men, until she enjoys the same arena of activity, extraordinary attainment for humanity will not be realized. Humanity cannot win its ways to heights of real attainment. When women participate fully and equally in the affairs of the world, when they enter confidently and capably the great arena of laws and politics, war will cease. For women will be the obstacle and hindrance to it. Abdul Baha.
Thank you. And this other quote also, the world in the past has been ruled by force, and man has dominated over woman by reasons of his more forceful and aggressive qualities of body and mind. But the balance is already shifting, says Abdul Wahab. Force is losing its dominance, and mental alertness, intuition, and spiritual qualities of love and service, in which woman is strong, are gaining ascendancy. Hence, the new age will be an age less masculine and more permeated with the feminine ideals, an age in which the masculine and feminine elements of civilization will be more evenly balanced. Here are two powerful poets laying out what the future is going to look like, women entering into the realms of politics and ruling and all branches of knowledge, and the qualities that have been considered and associated with as feminine, which of course, there are no only feminine qualities, the qualities that all men and women share, but these qualities will be valued. And so the world will change as a result of that. So it's really powerful, writings in both of them. I am not sure how much more time I have. Mr. Siva, how much time do I have so I can just skip and get to which parts? Do you have another 5-10 minutes, or what is?
Yeah, you can take 10-15 minutes, is okay.
10-15? Okay. This next one is about the nation. This is really beautiful. All three of these people are both, they have a wider loyalty to humanity, but they're also very much, they love the countries in which they were born and countries with whom they are associated. So the first one that I have here is a song in Tamil, which I will not sing, but my mother sang this for my sister's devotions. But it's a really beautiful song. It's a song that is praising his country, India. But at the same time, it is talking, he shows what makes a nation great. And this is Bharati's poem. And he said, in wisdom, in divine thought, in respectability, in free supply and availability of food, in music and in poetry drenched with nectar, it is the best country. And similarly, in goodness and strength of body, in the plurality of wealth, in valorous attachments and virtue of women, this country is great. In sacrifices, in the speed of penance, the art of yoga, in great many enjoyments in mind and body, in the grace of those who are devotees of God, this is a great nation. So while praising their country, or his country in this case, he is specifically also saying what makes a nation great. And this is both the content or the kinds of things that they are, that he's praising, and the way in which he is doing this are very evocative and similar to something Abdul Baha did, which is a book that he wrote called The Secret of Divine Civilization. And it's a treatise, it's written to the people of Iran and trying to call on them to become a great nation that it once used to be. But also, while doing that, he also writes about what makes a nation great. It's not just about, Iran's past and calling Iran to be a greater nation. It's particularly interesting with all the persecution of Baha'is and, women and other minorities that are happening in Iran. It's particularly poignant that Abdul Baha writes, what makes a nation great? And here he says, the spiritually learned are lamps of guidance among the nations, the stars of good fortune shining from the horizons of humankind. The nations should acquire the attributes of spiritual and material perfection, the first attribute of which is learning and cultural attainments of the mind. The second attribute is perfection, is justice and impartiality. The third requirement for perfection is to arise with complete sincerity and purity of purpose to educate the masses. Really, Abdul Baha lays out this vision for Iran, and while doing so, also talks to the world as a whole as to what makes nations great. And as we follow this guidance, and as we try to implement these, nations will become great and they will be part of a global family, sort of elevating all of humanity to a greater, to a greater place. Let's also quickly look at a poem of Tagore. May I ask someone who hasn't read so far to please read, Tracy or Colin, one of you, would you please read this poem of Tagore's?
I can read it.
Thank you.
Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
Thank you. This is a beautiful poem of Tagore as well, where, he calls on almost like, as though he's in a dream and dreaming of a future for his country, which is also true for all nations, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. A clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. These can be said about any of our countries today, both countries in the West, and also the countries in the East, that we are all struggling with just this slew of misinformation and disinformation and conservatism and narrow parochial nationalism. Here's a vision that all three of them paint for their nations, but also for the world. And this is directly, and this, of course, is my opinion about the other two authors, but certainly about for Abdul Baha, this is directly the message of Baha'u'llah, making its way into the world. And this Baha'u'llah powerfully, it's so powerful in the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. And he also talks about earth is but one country and all mankind is citizens. So to talk of all of us as one family, as as citizens of one common nation, this planet is so critical to solving the problems that we are currently facing, particularly cross-national problems and like climate change. And to which we cannot have just national solutions. We need collective global solutions. And so here's this vision of these three these three individuals talking about that. The last problem, and I'll close on this, is freedom from prejudice. Bharati very beautifully says, caste is not real. It does not exist. It is a sin to establish a hierarchy based on birth. So it could be of caste, of creed, of race, any of it. It's sin to establish a hierarchy based on birth. Those who are really superior are those who excel in justice, wisdom, education, and love. And he also says, he writes about God in a beautifully composite way. He talks, he says he's like, whereas these leaves and the young moon as a reference to Shiva, he revealed the wisdom to Prophet Muhammad, clearly a reference to Islam. He's known as the father of Jesus, referring to Christianity. Even thus, different religions describe that eternal being is one. Its nature is effulgent knowledge. One who knows that is free from difficulties. May we praise then grace and attain immortality. Very much that kind of writing. Tracy, can I ask you to read this last selection from Abdul Baha?
Sure. Prejudices of all kinds, whether religious, racial, patriotic, or political, are destructive of divine foundations in man. All the warfare and bloodshed in human history have been the outcome of prejudice. This earth is one home and native land. God has created mankind with equal endowment and right to live upon the earth. But there is need of a superior power to overcome human prejudices, a power which nothing in the world of mankind can withstand, and which will overshadow the effect of all other forces at work in human conditions. That irresistible power is the love of God. It is my hope and prayer that it may destroy the prejudice of this one point of distinction between you and unite you all permanently under its hallowed protection. Beautiful.
I will stop there. I hope this gave just a glimpse of the profound work of these two poets who may not be that familiar with, but also for this group, the work of the writings of Abdul Baha and the teachings of Baha'u'llah that really permeates through these and many, many, many other great writers and thinkers around the world who've been profoundly influenced by the spirit of the age, a spirit that really calls for us to understand, internalize, and live these three onenesses: the oneness of God, the oneness of the religion, and the oneness of humanity. Baha'u'llah says the pivot around which all his teachers revolve is the oneness of humanity. So I hope that these poems, these verses gave a sense of that. And if you have any reflections yourselves on any of these poems or any questions that we can collectively explore, very open to that. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasu. I learned a lot about these two poets that I didn't know, and learned about those topics. Those are the topics of the day at the moment that are important to know. So if anybody has got questions, please raise your hand so we can go through those questions. Can you, while people are raising their hands, Vasu, can you tell us that these two poets, did they live majority of their life in India, or what? I think you said one of them went to America.
Yes, they lived the majority of their lives. In fact, one of them lived all of his life in India. That was Bharati. Tagore had traveled overseas, and he certainly traveled to the United States at the same time as Abdul Baha, which is where they met. So he had traveled overseas, but the majority of their lives they did live in the Indian subcontinent. And
the dates that you gave for Bharati was only 39 when he passed. So he must have been very young, and whether it was an accident or was it natural death?
No, it was an accident, and so it was a life cut too short. And he's a phenomenal writer and thinker, way ahead of his times. And this is sort of why, so I don't read Bengali, so I've only read Tagore's poems in translation. In English, I've heard and sung his poem. He wrote over 2,000 songs. There's a whole body of his work of music called Ravindra Sangeet. So I've sung some of his songs in school and things like that, but I've not read his works in Bengali. They sound very poetic. but I don't know the language. But with Bharati, I do speak Tamil and read, and I've read his poems, and the power in his language is just so, very, very visible. And for a person that young, he was truly someone who was called to, channel that power of the spirit of the age into the society in which he was, writing. I see two hands.
Yeah, has anybody sang these into music, the poems of these two?
Yeah, well, like tons. You just do a quick Google search on any of their names, you'll get like more poems than you can actually, more songs than you can listen in a lifetime. Lots of music has been set to both of their, the Tagore's poems, particularly Rabindra Sangeet, is a whole style of music. He also, was responsible for a style of semi-classical dancing called Rabindra Nritya. So he's also, that's also very popular in West Bengal, and his university, Shantiniketan, continues to be a center of art and learning at this time. And Bharatiya's songs in the South they're sung in, musical concerts on stage, and light music, classical music with dance or films is extremely popular. But also wherever the Tamil diaspora lives, in Malaysia and Singapore, all over Australia, Canada, wherever the UK, wherever they are, Bharati songs are very much part of celebrations, part of poetry, and part of good speaking. People would often quote, poets in those languages, in Tamil, particularly of Bharati as well.
Okay, I'll have Sivas as the first person on the list.
Yung.
Oh, Yung, go, but on my list is Siva, but you go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, and thank you so much for your wonderful talk. I think you raised some very important issues there. I just wonder, your work have anything to be close to Red Cross activities and operations and strategy? The issue that I see here is respect. A lot of, I don't know about a lot, but like few groups in humanities think that they haven't been respected, they've been trampled on, they've been, nobody respect them. And especially the equality between men and women. The men have a right to be angry and create domestic violence, so it's okay, but not the women. And the other thing, do you have legal aids to help all these women to seek justice? And instead of providing, arbitration after the effect, can you provide some training to prevent the domestic violence? Because like God, like you said, God give abundant blessings for men and women, supposed to be equally treated on earth, respect one another. We can't have unity if we don't have respect each other, and we keep bashing up. We can't do the family unity. How you gonna create nation and global unity? How can we do that? It means that people haven't been learning anything from all these beautiful poems, or maybe they're not understanding it, the importance of it, because God gives blessing equally to everyone. We bath under the same sun, same rains, same water, but a group of people were crying, I haven't been respected, they not respected me, and they're crying for that. Is that because psychology issue, or because that's a real thing happening?
As usual, Young's question is very long, and we lost to what is your question?
So psychology here, you see, people feeling and frustration create domestic violence, can't create unity. They hate one another. They try to work for power and wealth, instead not listening to God. And they just keep claiming that we haven't been respected, especially imbalanced power between men and women.
Yeah, I think what she's asking is how effective, is this the equality and empowerment women have been? That's probably the basic question.
I think it's a really great reflection. It's part reflection and part question. It's not really a it's not just sort of an answer to that question, but that idea, I think it's all of these pieces are true. We need the poets to inspire us. We need the great leaders, men and women, to talk about equality, to push for equality, by equality in law, equality in the field of education, equality in the field of healthcare, in the field of humanitarian issues that you talked about. So all of that is absolutely 100% correct. We need to do more. We need to do better. And I don't think it's only a question of training as much as important as training is. It's also about transformation of the human heart. And that's really what the Baha'i writings lay that out. The principle of the equality of women and men is a fundamental principle. And that women and men are equal and have always been equal in the eyes of God is an unequivocal, clear statement in the Baha'i writings. But when that puts into practice at the level of the family, all members of the family have rights, and all their rights should be respected. And individuals should treat each other with great respect, and both within the family and also outside. So these are all things that have to be put into practice. And there is no doubt about that. I think there is some element of learning and training. There is some element of being inspired. There's the element of prayer. And there's an element of daily calling ourselves into account, and seeing how our behavior aligns with principles that we follow, the teachings of great religions that we want to follow. Do they align or not? And if they don't, what can we do to do better? And then there is a sense of societal accountability that, that when these rights are violated, society as a whole is responsible to ensure that justice is done, but also that foundations for a better future are laid. It is not only about punishing bad behavior. It's about how do you create the next generation of, prejudice-free children? How do we create children who are committed to equality? So what Baha'i communities around the world are doing through the devotional gatherings of, for all people that they're offering, through the Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program, through children's classes, through study circles, is precisely to develop that capacity in individuals and societies to put principles like the equality of women and men into action on a day-to-day basis. And it's not that only Baha'is are doing this. We're doing this with a lot of like-minded people around the world. Some of them are established organizations, but some of them are individuals. Some of them are wonderful school teachers. Some of them are, work in civil society, what we call NGOs. We need everyone to come together, more sustained effort to translate teachings into action. And I think that there's in the level of individual accountability, but there's also should be a level of societal accountability to ensure that these principles are put in action. So completely agree with you. I think it's a great question, and one that, Bharati, Tagore, Abdul Baha, and certainly the entire, sort of corpus of Baha'i writings unequivocally say is a priority. You want to solve world's problems, there should be equality of women and men. And for equality of women and men, it has to start with the family. But it's not only with the family. It's actually every level, every field needs to have that equality, and the field itself will be transformed by bringing, women and men equally into it. So thank you, Jung, for that great question. And sort of, I hope we'll be collectively reflecting on that. Maybe we could go to Mr. Siva. You had your hand up as well.
Yeah. First of all, I should thank you for giving this presentation, and it was enlightening. Though I know I speak Tamil like you, and I have read Bharatiyar's poems as a school boy, but I knew I had the glimpses of those ideas that aligns with the Baha'i teaching, but I didn't go into deep as you did. So thank you for that. And also, I never heard that actually Rabindranath Tagore met Abdul Baha. That was a very interesting news to me. Now you mentioned that there is a spirit of the age. That you said that when the manifestations of God comes to the earth, a spirit is released, and that touches people directly or indirectly. And these people are, you mentioned Bharadiyar and Tagore were touched by that. So my question is, certainly in the other parts of the world also, there must have been some some prominent people who would have been touched by the spirit of Baha'u'llah, at least. Does any one comes to your mind, and whether you have done any research in that?
There are many people who are directly influenced also by them. That that we've heard Tolstoy, for example, talk about Baha'u'llah and his teachings. Right. We also have heard about other great thinkers and writers who talked about. I haven't researched this much into anyone else's work and their reflection, and I'll leave this to people with those language skills and those ideas. But I am, this is a fact, and it's not just poets; it's also scientists. It is also sort of how knowledge has really, what we knew 150 years ago and what we know now, where humanity was technologically 150 years ago and where we are now. It's a completely new world, right? So I think I took two poets because I like poetry, I like music, I like art, but it's also true of the world of science and how, this, though there is no direct revelation, the sort of direct writings informing science, so to speak, but the power of the revelation has made humanity go leaps and bounds. All the new things that have been invented since that time, be it in the field of transportation, be it in the field of telecommunication, or traveling to space. Just as we think about and the ways in which we solve medical problems, of the world. So the ways in which knowledge has dramatically changed, is also an evidence of that. And I'll leave that research to others to write and say. I really do want to delve even deeper with these two poets I know.
What about Khalil Gibran?
Khalil Gibran met Abdul Baha, right? And Khalil Gibran certainly, was a. So I think he had already written The Prophet by the time he met Abdul Baha, even though The Prophet is the book that he's most well known for. Another book, Son of Man, which, is about the life of Christ. And in fact, it is that in which he really channels sort of having met the master and, writing about him more. But certainly writing about the book Prophet definitely has a lot of ideas that are moved by the spirit of the age, for sure. Khalil Gibran knew and met Abdul Baha. I even painted Abdul Baha once, right? So, certainly. And there'll be many more, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Ahmad?
Yeah, from what I gathered, you've written 4 books, and from the titles, it looks like it's about election management and electoral role. Can you tell us a little bit about them? And is that kind of a leading topic in your profession? Just give us a bit of detail about the books that you've written.
Sure. My work has really centered around, one of the fundamental human rights, which is the right to have a say in who governs you and how you are governed, right? It's Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that says the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. So democracy, as a form of government and electoral rights as fundamental rights, something that most of all of my career has been dedicated to that principle. So the books or the publications that I've done are all in that sphere. One is around gender equality in elections. Another one is around countering hate speech and disinformation around elections. And a third one publication is around the electoral rights of environmentally displaced people. With climate change, people are being displaced in large numbers. How are they having say in decisions that affect them? Are they being included in electoral and political processes? So that's what the book is about. And I feel there's sort of a direct connection or an inspiration from the Baha'i faith that I bring to my work, which is one, the principle of the oneness of humanity and the equality of, sexes, equality of women and men and this fundamental unity, but also the principle of integrity, of public service, of justice that has to permeate through all work that we do, be it politics, be it education, be it humanitarian work. They have to be based and anchored in principles of integrity. As the Baha'i writings say, truthfulness is the foundation, of all virtues, right? So really, what are we building these institutions and processes on a foundation of truth? The answer is clearly hugely challenged, but the standards for these, are the principles of integrity, principles of justice, of inclusion, of diversity. So that's really what my professional life is, and I feel, and sort of where my professional life and it's very much informed by my beliefs and the Baha'i teachings. Though I do not work for directly in a Baha'i organization or a Baha'i project, certainly I bring these principles to work every day, as are a range of people who bring their faith traditions and sort of the best of the teachings that call us to be people of integrity and to be really concerned about making this world a more just place, which really is sort of the whole purpose. We're told in the Baha'i writings that we've all been created to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. So that's just really sort of how I think about my work, and really all Baha'is are encouraged to think about their work, to do it in the spirit of service. It's considered equivalent to worship.
I'm sure that you've heard about the protest of the women in Iran in recent times, and the support by women of the world in recent days, that many gatherings all over the world regarding liberty, freedom of women. And one of your books is about the feminine part of, what the word was. Let me just get it back.
The new dawn breaks, but Muslim women's work in India.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was fortunate to work with a wonderful team of gender experts and organizations in India on a women's legal rights program. And one component of it was really working with the rights of Muslim women. We worked with lots of groups, but the book was particularly around the work with rights of Muslim women. And truly, it was about drawing on the teachings in the Holy Quran about equality, and then also the Indian Constitution, where women and men are, there's that equality is enshrined in that both from a religious perspective and a political perspective, that there was this clear sense of equality, and how to, use both of those streams of knowledge and, experiences to fight for equality. A lot of women were engaged and men were engaged in this program, and that was what this book was about. There was a lot of misinterpretation and misconceptions about, inequality of women and men. And certainly from a Baha'i perspective, Baha'u'llah is unequivocally clear that men and women are equal, but have always been equal. So when you look at religious traditions that came before the Baha'i faith, any sense of inequality that seems to be inherent in them is clearly either a misinterpretation or something that was meant for a different time and space, that was not intended for, to address a specific situation, and not intended for humanity forever. So from looking at these other religious traditions from a Baha'i perspective, it's like you're reading previous chapters of the same book. And things have moved on because God has given new rules. But also in each of those chapters, the story is consistent that women and men are equal. So, but they could be, anything can be misrepresented, misinterpreted, which is usually, patriarchy and male religious leaders doing the interpretation, clearly, which is biased towards men, and in some cases, in many cases, deeply oppressive to women. So that's what that program was about, and a lot of women and men learned about equality and tried to practice that, in their communities. And it was a really interesting work, and I'm absolutely reminded of that work and the conversations that we had around that, and trying to juxtapose that with what is happening in Iran today, and and how the entire world, there's support from women around the world, but there's also support from a lot of men around the world to this idea of equality. And we are particularly, concerned about this situation because it's the country of the birth of the Baha'i faith, and it's the home of great women like Tahereh, and Tahereh very powerfully said, you can kill me, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women. And many protesters are even using that exact same statement from Tahereh in their protests in Iran. This is truly a very powerful time for Iran, and I think we all hope that there will be positive change in the direction of equality in that country, and also the persecuted religious minorities, including Baha'is, will get some relief from this relentless persecution.
It looks like we are entering a new era where the emancipation of women is coming to fruition, and a lot of places in the world are talking about this topic, this issue of equality of men and women now.
Indeed.
Is anybody else that has got any questions?
Pina, you're on mute.
Oh, Pino raised his hand, but I don't know whether he's still here.
Yeah, Pina,
Please, yeah.
unmute and talk.
I'm here.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank Vasu for bringing out these wonderful people, great minds, and even the physical similarity with Abdul Baha. This is amazing. I never have known the similarities that way. It's just so wonderful. And the question of how do we solve the problem of this inequality? And I thought the passage from Abdul Baha, he said that the betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds, through commendable and seemly conduct. So that is our work. That's our homework. That's our job. Yeah. We have to do that because we are given the tools to shape ourselves by the divine teachings, as well as to show an example to others. So let me be the change that I want to see. It has to start within me, by myself. And then talking about these poems, they're so beautiful. The similarity of the words, the ideas, it's just so beautiful. And recently there is this prayer by Abdul Baha, this newly translated prayer. And it's poetic. And I was so attracted to it. We were studying the Covenant, the Ruhi book. And at the end, we had a homework to do presentations. And I was given particularly to give a tune to the passage by Abdul Baha. And when I found this prayer, I fell in love and I tried to put into tune. And if you have time, maybe you don't mind, I will sing it for you.
Yes, why not?
Okay, I try. Oh Lord, so rich in bounty, so replete with grace, whose knowledge doth mine inmost heart and soul embrace. At morn, the solace of my soul is none but thee, the knower of my loss and woe is none but thee, the heart that for a moment had thy mention known will seek no friend save longing pain for thee alone. Withered be the heart that sigheth not for thee, and better blind the eye that crieth not for thee. In all mine hours of deepest gloom, O Lord of might, my heart of thy remembrance for a shining light, do through thy favor breathe thy spirit into me, that what hath never been made us forever be. Consider not our merits and our worth, O Lord of bounty, but the grace thou pourest forth upon these broken winged birds, whose flight is slow. Out of that tender mercy, newfound wings bestow, newfound wings bestow. Abdul Baha.
Lovely, Pina. It was really nice. You have to do it
Khayli
more.
mamnoon.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
So if there's no questions, I don't know.
Jung has raised her hand, and there is a new participant, Rajamani.
Okay, now I saw those Jung and Basinti. Okay, Jung, go ahead.
Won't be long. I'm just want to remind you, if anybody read the Bible, God created Adam first and then break his rib to make Eva. So Eva is only a part of Adam. So nowadays we want to have equality and respect between men and women. It's sort of like a struggle, like to go to climb to Himalaya, the mountain, the high Everest. So it's going to be really difficult. And the other thing that if people want to have respect, gain respect, they need to prove themselves to be respected. So therefore they cannot say, why don't you respect our group? Because we have to prove, everything you need to prove. So what I'm saying is very simple, prove yourself so people can respect you. And in the Bible, women have a different role. It's a rib of Adam. Even they have distinctive voice. They're different people. They cannot, for me, talk about muscle. Women doesn't have muscle like men. So that's one thing. So they do different jobs. They have different duties and functions, including working in a parliament house. they can handle all the confidential information, and they work with board of directors, chief executive, or general managers, no problem. So they have to work together. That's what I'm saying. So prove respect. You prove yourself, you make people respect you, and we everyone unity.
Okay. I think you take that as a comment. Is that right, Young?
Well, I don't know how many people read the
You're
Bible.
muted, Vasu.
Yeah, I mean,
Vasu is muted.
Vasu, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I was just nodding to Siva's comment that it's a comment. So I think we will, I think it's a wonderful comment, and I think, yes.
yes.
Can I say, Jung, that Adam and Eve have, a spiritual meanings. It's not really physical. The concept of men and women coming, from woman coming from the breast of the man. It's really a spiritual concept, because we know from history, from science, that humanity has been on this earth for a long time, very long time, and is evolved. So we have to match science with religion, and we have to go and see whether there is spiritual concepts behind that statement in Bible.
So I'm saying, why when women pregnant, they have to carry the husband's surname? I mean, for the first few months of marriage, they can say, okay, I still use my maiden name, a surname. But once they get pregnant, for the children identity, they got to take up the husband's surname. So that is tradition in a society.
Yes.
And therefore, the feminist people can stand up and say they want to be liberated, but they can't be.
Well, obviously these things will change by time, so you have to see the evolvement of the, Abdullah says that the future world would be more feminist in the readings that Vasu brought in. So we don't know. In future, all things might change.
Okay.
Just one small comment. Neither my sister nor my wife took the last names of their husbands. So my wife had her last name, and my sister has actually same last name as mine, which is my dad's.
So my wife too.
Yeah, they didn't take last names. It's not a requirement, at all. It's actually in many countries. There's some wonderful Baha'i couples in the US I know where they have both husband and wife have taken both last names and hyphenated as well. So I think this will change. It's not the most important thing. It will change. What is more important is that girls have access to education, the same education that boys have access to, that women have access to the same, job opportunities, learning opportunities, and there are no barriers that are put in their progress. These other things will take care of themselves, things will change. But I think most importantly, in matters of education, in matters of safety, in matters of being able to speak their mind freely, that people should not be restricted. And that's, I think, the the most important thing. When that happens, then I think there will be a dialogue, there will be conversations. Some people will choose to take last names, some people will not. Some people will choose to have kids, some people may not choose to have kids. I think all of those things are secondary. I think what's primary, maybe in my opinion, is that we don't put any artificial barriers, to people, and allow them to express their own, potential. There's another beautiful quote in the Baha'i writings that talks about each human being, sort of being a mind rich in gems of inestimable value. And that's true for every man, every woman in this world, and anyone who considers themselves to be anything in between. To everybody. Everybody is a mind rich in gem of inestimable values. And the purpose of this life is to bring out those gems in service for each other, in service for humanity. So that's the point. So as long as we don't put barriers into people being able to bring out their talents and faculties in service, society will continue to find, different iterations, different solutions. But the most important thing is that, you should allow people to, freely, with lots of support, to sort of become their best potential, however they define for themselves, right? So I think, I hope that gatherings like this, the community building work that Baha'is are engaged in around the world, and with all the like-minded people, this is the new world that we are trying to build. It's not just making small shifts to an old world order, which is, tragically failing. It's about building a new world order, where we're fundamentally questioning all the assumptions that we have made, not tweaking them one by one, but truly building, building a new world. And so that's why a manifestation of God comes. That's why Baha'u'llah came. And so, and that's why Christ came when he came, or, Prophet Muhammad came when he came. So to the question of whether, people, Baha'is read the Bible or not, certainly, there's a lot of reference to the Bible in the Baha'i writings, as there are references to the Quran, and Baha'is are encouraged to read the sacred texts of all of the world's religions. But we read them with the understanding that Baha'u'llah's writings are the most recent and the most relevant to today's world's problem. It's like a doctor who gave a prescription for a disease we have, 20 years ago. That prescription was absolutely perfect for that time, but it is not for this day and age, because the doctor did not diagnose today's problems. And that's what this divine physician does. Baha'u'llah diagnoses today's problems and has given us, solutions of how to implement them. So whether someone becomes a Baha'i or not a Baha'i, that prescription is there for them to take and follow. And the more we as society and as individuals follow that prescription, the better we are all going to be collectively. Because that's what that's what the doctor has ordered. So I think that's sort of where the conversation of groups like this really goes, as to how do we build a new world order based on the guidance we have received from the manifestation of God for this day and age, while respecting equally all the guidance that has come in the past. The guidance that we are trying to put into action is the framework that has been given by the manifestation of God for this day and age. So, Vasanta, I think you had your hand up afterwards. You have great questions and great reflections. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much. I just want to know whether you could share the poems with us, copy of the poems with us, whether you will be able to share the copy of the poems with us. And also, I just want to let you, Paradia's great-granddaughter gave a talk in this meeting.
Yes.
A few months ago.
Where did he give the talk?
Here in our interfaith meeting. Paradia's
yes. His granddaughter.
Great-granddaughter.
Great-granddaughter, okay. Yes, I remember that. I thought very fondly of it. It's recorded, right? It's available online.
Yes. It is on our YouTube channel. Yes, I think in in June. In June, I think she gave a talk. Yes. Yes, I'm still on the topic of the spirit of the age, because I am fascinated by that. And but I want to ask you: have you ever met people? I mean, not so prominent, whether that you see that spirit of age has touched them? And I also like to ask others here whether they have met people who wouldn't have heard about the faith or Baha'u'llah, but their ideas and vision is almost same as Baha'u'llah. So
Swami Vivekananda.
But Swami Vivekananda and so many other great beings. You also said something interesting, which is about not famous people, but just everyday people. And the answer to that question is a resounding yes. That I think, you have to actually actively avoid people, to not find people who are touched by the spirit of the age. I think they are everywhere. And, particularly in my line of work, when you look at human rights or, certainly you look at humanitarian work, there are so many people, who are very much thinking, in those lines, but very often it's not about all, the vast, gamut of teachings of the spirit of the age. It's often about one particular. Some people are deeply committed to animal rights. Some people are deeply committed to women's rights. Some people are deeply committed to the harmony of science. Some people are deeply committed to social justice. But what is really unique about Baha'u'llah and the teachings that he gave is that it's a spirit of the age as a whole. If you look at, the fundamentals of environmental justice, of social justice, of gender justice, it is all in the writings, right? And it's not just about, specific virtues. All the virtues are covered. All of global problems and potential solutions, of how, or at least approaches of how to approach these problems are in the Baha'i writings, but how nations will try to organize themselves in the future. What kind of language will we speak and how will we communicate with each other? The promotion of a universal auxiliary language. Sort of there's a range of things that Baha'u'llah has given to us. So I feel like very often what I find is people who have been touched by one part of that spirit, and there are a few who are touched completely and don't know it, but many people are moved by some of these ideas that have gone into the world. At least that's my experience. When I talk about the faith to people, many times I've heard people say, yeah, I believe this completely, or I've been part of this, and they may or may not choose to become Baha'is, but they certainly are touched or feel that resonance with their belief. I'll stop there. I'm sure others have very similar or different experiences that we can hear from.
Tracy has got her hand on.
Oh, I'm sort of coming from a little bit different angle, but it is, building that spirit of the age or benefit of the age. Even like we're all using electricity, we're all using technology. But there's been people who made an incredible amount of effort to get electricity, even to discover electricity, make electricity safe. Every time we turn on a light, we don't necessarily think of them, but we're benefiting from their effort. And there are many people today. I mean, I read a lot of different things. I'm not a Baha'i. I'm a multi-faith person, so I read a lot of different things. And I also read a lot of things about energy medicine. And there's a lot of people who feel that with energy medicine even, that this is the age where we are taking responsibility for the ancestral patterns of the past, becoming aware of them and choosing to be different. And even the 1 minute mile. For a long time, no one thought you could run faster than a minute, And then one person did it. Then simultaneously around the world, people were able to do it. And then more and more people were able to do it. So, everybody in their own way is actually helping to bring about that positive change. And we just wish it would come sooner than we're seeing the suffering. Now we have the technology to see the suffering all around the world. We wish that it would come sooner. But we're all contributing to it somehow, because who knows what air, when we breathe out, who's going to be taking that air in?
Yes.
That's the energy medicine model. Anyway.
It's the butterfly principle.
Yes.
But Abdul Baha says that this presentation of the bounty of God, when the manifestation comes, is like the rays of the sun. It shines on everyone. So obviously it must affect people that do not believe even in Baha'i faith, but we believe that it will go to everyone. It shines on everyone.
Okay.
We haven't heard from a few other people, like Primo, Rajamani. Actually, Rajamani, I think is the first time she's here. So maybe if you can, can you let us know who you are and if you have any things to say about the topic of the day today.
I am a French speaking. It's difficult for me to explain. I would like to sing a song, a prayer, a little prayers for you.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
From where are you?
I live in France, in the border of Germany.
Okay. We haven't had anybody from Europe. This is first time. That's nice.
My brother Jiva invited her. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Oh, la, la, oh, yakfi. Ankole shayan. Oh, la, la, oh, yakfi. Ankole shayan. Vala la he far. Yatavakelon. Motevakelon. Yatavakelon. Motevakelon. Dis Dieu suffit à tout, au-dessus de tout. Dis Dieu suffit à tout, au-dessus de tout. Que les âmes sincères se confie à lui, que les âmes sincères se confient à lui, se confient à lui, se confient à lui.
Great. Thank you very much. This is actually for those people that don't know, is a prayer that Allah revealed when he was in Siachal in the prison of Tehran, in those 4 months that he was in that prison before he was exiled. And he asked people to say that the prisoners, that were fellow Bobbies, and to chant that, and they chanted it very loud. And it's been translated obviously in French and English as well.
Okay, I think we can. That was.
It says, "Sufficient is thy name, and I leave my trust in you." It's not exact words.
Thank you, and maybe we can. Now it is 9:15.
Yeah, 9:13.
We can close the meeting, and once again, thank you, Vasu, and maybe we can have few more sessions with you in future. And thank you, Rajmani, for this beautiful chant. That was a nice closing for us. And thank you, Jiva, for inviting Rajmani. And thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vasu.
Ave Maria.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.